The girl vanished. Dreams shattered silently. Heart broke slowly. Tears fell endlessly. Night embraced sorrow. Memories pierced sharply. Pain lingered forever. Love seemed distant. Hope faded quickly. Eyes reflected sadness. Hands trembled softly. Words remained unspoken. Promises broke easily. Time healed nothing. Loneliness hugged tightly. Silence pressed heavily. Emotions ran wild. Heart ached deeply. Shadows filled rooms. Tears stained cheeks. Memories haunted constantly. Pain gripped tightly. Night whispered gently. Dreams turned ashes. Hopes shattered completely. Life felt empty. Love vanished quietly. Soul cried silently. Breath caught painfully. The past haunted. Heart screamed loudly. Eyes closed wearily. Pain consumed slowly. Dreams died silently. Loneliness pressed harshly. Tears flowed endlessly. Night whispered sorrow. Memory burned fiercely. Heart remained hollow. Love lingered quietly. Shadows swallowed light. Hopes dimmed gradually. Silence remained heavy. Tears stained pillow. Pain returned often. Dreams drifted away. Heart remained restless. Life dragged painfully. Hope disappeared quickly. Emotions clashed violently. Tears ran endlessly. Loneliness grew harsher. Memory stabbed sharply. Love disappeared slowly. Heart burned silently. Night held secrets. Dreams crumbled fast. Pain lingered long. Eyes reflected grief. Hands trembled softly. Words remained trapped. Promises faded away. Time healed nothing. Shadows moved silently. Tears fell endlessly. Pain echoed repeatedly. Life seemed endless. Memory haunted constantly. Hopes faded entirely. Love cried softly. Heart ached deeply. Dreams shattered completely. Silence pressed tightly. Tears flowed endlessly. Loneliness hugged closely. Pain consumed slowly. Heart remained heavy. Night whispered softly. Emotions ran wild. Dreams turned ashes. Hopes vanished forever. Life dragged painfully. Love seemed distant. Memory pierced sharply. Tears stained cheeks. Heart burned slowly. Silence remained heavy. Pain returned often. Dreams died silently. Loneliness pressed deeply. Hope disappeared quickly. Shadows swallowed light. Love lingered quietly. Tears fell endlessly. Night held sorrow. Heart screamed silently. Dreams broke sharply. Pain lingered forever. Emotions clashed violently. Life felt empty. Memory haunted endlessly. Hopes dimmed gradually. Love vanished quietly. Tears flowed silently. Loneliness pressed tightly. Heart remained hollow. Night whispered gently. Pain consumed slowly. Dreams drifted silently. Hope disappeared quickly. Life dragged painfully. Tears stained pillow. Memory burned fiercely. Love cried softly. Heart ached deeply. Shadows swallowed light. Silence pressed heavily. Dreams shattered completely. Pain lingered long. Hopes faded entirely. Tears flowed endlessly. Loneliness hugged tightly. Life seemed frozen. Emotions ran wild. Heart remained restless. Night whispered sorrow. Dreams crumbled fast. Love disappeared slowly. Pain returned often. Eyes closed wearily. Tears fell silently. Memory pierced sharply. Heart burned slowly. Silence remained heavy. Dreams died silently. Hope vanished completely. Life felt empty. Shadows moved softly. Pain echoed endlessly. Love lingered quietly. Tears stained cheeks. Loneliness pressed harshly. Heart ached deeply. Night held secrets. Dreams drifted away. Pain consumed slowly. Memory haunted constantly. Hopes vanished quickly. Love cried softly. Heart screamed quietly. Tears ran endlessly. Silence pressed tightly. Dreams turned ashes. Life dragged painfully. Emotions clashed violently. Pain lingered forever. Heart remained hollow. Night whispered gently. Tears flowed endlessly. Memory burned fiercely. Love seemed distant. Hope disappeared quickly. Dreams shattered completely. Life felt empty. Shadows swallowed light. Pain returned often. Heart ached deeply. Tears fell endlessly. Loneliness hugged tightly. Dreams crumbled fast. Hopes dimmed gradually. Love vanished quietly. Silence pressed heavily. Pain lingered long. Memory haunted constantly. Heart remained restless. Night whispered sorrow. Dreams died silently. Tears ran endlessly. Love cried softly. Hopes vanished forever. Life dragged painfully. Emotions clashed violently. Pain consumed slowly. Heart burned silently. Memory pierced sharply. Dreams drifted silently. Night held secrets. Tears flowed endlessly. Silence remained heavy. Love lingered quietly. Hope disappeared quickly. Life seemed frozen. Shadows moved softly. Pain lingered forever. Heart ached deeply. Dreams turned ashes. Tears stained pillow. Loneliness pressed tightly. Memory haunted endlessly. Love disappeared slowly. Night whispered gently. Dreams crumbled fast. Pain returned often. Heart remained hollow. Hopes dimmed gradually. Tears fell endlessly. Life dragged painfully. Silence pressed tightly. Emotions ran wild. Love cried softly. Memory burned fiercely. Dreams died silently. Heart screamed quietly. Pain lingered long. Tears flowed endlessly. Loneliness hugged closely. Night whispered sorrow. Life felt empty. Shadows swallowed light. Hope vanished quickly. Dreams shattered completely. Love lingered quietly. Heart burned slowly. Pain consumed slowly. Tears stained cheeks. Memory haunted. 9.